Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely reshape our understanding of a foundational Islamic concept. We're zeroing in on a word that usually just gets translated as mercy. But honestly, as our source material today reveals, that one single English word doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of what this concept actually represents. We aren't just talking about a fleeting feeling. We're looking at an entire, comprehensive system. It's what the sources call the architecture of divine mercy, Rahmah.
So to start us off, I want you to honestly ask yourself right now, what does mercy actually mean to you? For a lot of us who grew up with very westernized assumptions, mercy conjures up this image of a judge banging a gavel and just letting a criminal off the hook, right? We equate it with pity, or maybe conflict avoidance, or just passive forgiveness. We think of it as merely a feeling of sympathy. But the Qur'anic concept of Rahmah challenges that passive definition entirely. In fact, it completely upends it.
All right, let's dive into this with the phrase you've probably heard before. In the name of Allah, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful. If you know anything about the Qur'an, you know it opens almost every single chapter with this exact phrase. And why does that matter? Well, because it immediately establishes a worldview. Before the text even touches on cosmic power, before it discusses justice, and way before it brings up judgment, the very fabric of the universe is introduced to us through this primary lens of mercy. Now here is where it gets incredibly fascinating. Let's look at the linguistic root of the word itself. Rahmah derives from the Arabic letters R-H-M, and in Arabic, this is the exact same root used for the word raḥim, which literally translates to the womb. Think about that for a second. This is a stunning biological connection. It takes this massive, abstract, cosmic theological concept and grounds it in a tactile, universal human reality that every single one of us can immediately comprehend.
Just think about what a womb actually does. It's an environment that completely protects, it nourishes, it sustains, it allows for incredibly fragile growth, and it gives absolutely everything to the life inside it without demanding a single thing in repayment. When you apply those specific traits to Rahmah, it proves that divine mercy in the Qur'an isn't just some passive feeling of pity. It's an active, dynamic, life-giving architecture of nurturing care that is actively seeking the flourishing of another.
Building directly from that root, the source points out that two of Allah's most frequently repeated names reflect distinct layers of this care. First, we have Ar-Rahmān, which scholars describe as the universally merciful. This is like a vast umbrella that encompasses absolutely all creation, believer and unbeliever, human and animal, righteous and sinful alike. Then we have Ar-Rahīm, the continuously merciful, which emphasizes a very special, enduring partnership toward those who actively respond to him. So it's this beautiful, dual-layered system of care.
And this brilliantly captures the sheer scale of that first name, Ar-Rahman. The Qur'an states quite simply, "My mercy encompasses all things." Notice the specific phrasing there. It doesn't say many things, or most things, or just the things that deserve it. No, the scope of this active, womb-like care is absolute. It leaves literally nothing out.
Which brings us to what I think is a pretty extraordinary statement in our source material. Your Lord has prescribed mercy upon himself. While justice and judgment absolutely exist in this worldview, the Quran never actually says that punishment is prescribed in that same foundational way. Active nurturing care is presented not as some rare exception to the rule, but as the chosen governing principle of the divine. This naturally leads us into a bit of a conflict with modern thinking. Are justice and mercy opposites? In our modern secular thought, we constantly place these two concepts on opposite sides of a scale, don't we? We assume they're natural rivals, like if you're being merciful, you must be sacrificing justice, and if you're being just, you're withholding mercy. But the source text shows us that the Quran completely rejects that dichotomy.
Let's completely reframe how we see that partnership. Think about it, justice without mercy? That just becomes cruelty. But on the flip side, mercy without justice just enables wrongdoing. In the Quranic framework, they aren't rivals at all. Even divine laws, discipline, and accountability are actually ultimate forms of protective care meant to ensure human flourishing. Because sometimes true mercy means holding someone accountable before greater harm occurs to them or to someone else.
Let's move on and see how this builds into the whole concept of guidance. One of the biggest surprises you'll find in the Quran is that guidance itself, even uncomfortable truth, is called a mercy. The text is literally described as a healing and a light. Being shown the right path, receiving truth, wisdom, and getting correction before you end up destroying yourself, all of that is framed as a profound, nurturing gift.
And this directly shatters the misconception that mercy is merely conflict avoidance or just plain weakness. Sometimes, Rahmah requires speaking an incredibly uncomfortable truth. It means stepping in to stop oppression. It means setting firm boundaries and disciplining fairly. Active care sometimes demands difficult, strong actions to restore balance. It is never, ever passive.
Okay, let's bring this massive cosmic concept right down to your daily life. The source points out that in the Quran, existence itself isn't presented as some sort of cruel test. It's a gift. It's a direct manifestation of Rahmah. Every single day, the rain, the food on your table, your family, the very fact that you can sleep, your capacity for language, your intellect, and even the simple ability to recognize when you've messed up and repent, these are all tangible proofs of that womb-like, sustaining care surrounding you all the time.
This cosmic architecture then translates directly into the ultimate human blueprint. The Quran describes the Prophet Muhammad by stating, "We have not sent you except as a mercy to all the worlds." Notice the wording there. It doesn't say a mercy just to believers, or just to Arabs, or just to Muslims. No, the prophetic character is meant to be a walking embodiment of this active care for all the worlds.
And what that means for us is that embodying this active, nurturing duty is expected of all believers in their day-to-day human interactions. If you are studying this system, you are expected to reflect it through your actions. Forgiving, feeding, caring, protecting, reconciling, comforting, being gentle. You are literally tasked with bringing that environment of growth and protection into the lives of the people around you every single day.
It is honestly amazing how this one singular concept operates as the glue for an entire belief system, weaving together every major theme of the Quranic worldview into a completely coherent human journey. Guidance shows you the way of mercy. Faith trusts the guide. Reliance rests in his mercy. Patience endures through it. Gratitude recognizes it. Justice ensures it doesn't become unfair favoritism, and sincerity seeks the merciful rather than human approval. It's just an incredibly tight logical structure. So, if we were to summarize the absolute core paradigm shift of this explainer, it really comes down to this. In this worldview, justice determines what people strictly deserve, but Rahmah steps in to give them what actually helps them flourish. The ultimate goal of this entire system is always restoration and growth, rather than punishment and humiliation. At its core, it's a fundamentally optimistic framework. Which brings us to basically the psychological climax of our explainer today. Do not despair of Allah's mercy. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. The source heavily emphasizes that within this framework, despair itself is treated as a fundamental misunderstanding of who the divine actually is. Because the architecture is built on a foundation of womb-like care, it means no matter how far you've wandered off the path, your mistakes are never the end of your story. The door is literally always open.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. How does viewing the world through this lens of active, nurturing care change your daily interactions? Think about it. If the universe is fundamentally governed by a system designed to help you grow, protect you, and see you flourish, how does that change the way you treat yourself when you fail? And just as importantly, how does it change the way you treat the people around you today? Really think about that. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep learning.